There is a specific kind of problem the human mind cannot let go of. Not a problem that is simply unsolved, a problem where every answer requires you to believe something impossible. On August 16, 1942, a United States Navy blimp designated L-8 departed Treasure Island, San Francisco at 6 in the morning on a routine anti-submarine patrol. 4 hours later, it drifted over a residential neighborhood south of San Francisco. It dragged across rooftops, it tangled in telephone lines, and it came to rest on the 400 block of Bellevue Avenue in Daly City. The first man to reach the gondola looked inside. Nobody there. 3 parachutes, a life raft, a working radio that had not sent a distress call, a hat on the controls. 2 men had been seen in that cabin less than 4 hours earlier, from the decks of 2 separate vessels. 2 men who had followed every procedure, radioed their position, worn their life jackets. Neither of them was ever found. The evening before the patrol, a man named Charles Adams came home with something new: his commission. After years as an enlisted airship man, after surviving the crash of the Macon, after logging 2,281 hours in the sky, he had finally received his officer's papers. That afternoon, August 15th, 1942. His first patrol as a commissioned officer was the next morning. Adams was 34. He had served aboard 3 of the Navy's great rigid airships, Los Angeles, Akron, Macon. He had watched 2 of them fall. He was the one who knew what the air felt like at altitude, what a blimp sounded like when something was wrong. We don't know what Adams did that evening, whether he called his wife Helen, whether he read the commission again, whether he felt the weight of it, or just the ordinary tiredness of a man who had been in the Navy for years and knew that tomorrow was just another patrol. His commanding officer, Lieutenant Ernest Cody, had 756 hours in lighter-than-air flight, a Naval Academy graduate, class of 1938. Classmates remembered him as earnest, sincere, a man who had enlisted first, then fought his way to Annapolis. His wife was Helen, too. They both lived in Mountain View. At 6:03 in the morning on August 16th, L-8 lifted off from Treasure Island on what the Navy called Flight 101, routine anti-submarine patrol. 4 hours, 50-mile radius, the Farallon Islands and back. A third man, aviation machinist's mate James Riley Hill, was supposed to be on board. He was removed at the last minute. The blimp had taken on moisture overnight. 3 men was too much weight. Hill watched L-8 lift off, went home, spent the rest of his life knowing he should have been on it. At 7:38 in the morning, Cody radioed his position. He was approximately 4 miles east of the Farallon Islands. Standard check-in. 4 minutes later, he sent another message. Am investigating suspicious oil slick. Stand by. That was the last transmission from L-8. But the radio silence didn't mean nothing was happening. From the deck of the Liberty ship Albert Gallatin and the fishing vessel Daisy Gray, sailors watched L-8 descend toward the water. It circled the slick. It dropped 2 smoke markers. It was operating normally. And in the gondola, 2 men, both clearly visible. This is the moment the case hinges on. 2 witnesses on 2 vessels, 2 men in the cabin, the oil slick below, the smoke markers falling, and then nothing. At 8:20, Squadron Headquarters realized they hadn't heard from L-8. By 8:50, 2 Kingfisher search planes were in the air. L-8 didn't respond to any of it. The radio worked. The engines ran. The blimp kept moving west, over open water, toward the California coast. Whatever happened in that gondola happened between 7:42 in the morning, when Cody sent his last message, and whatever moment two men became zero. No one knows when that moment was. At 10:49 in the morning, a Pan American Clipper pilot spotted L8 over the Golden Gate. Nothing apparently wrong with it. At 11 o'clock, a Kingfisher saw it west of Salada Beach at 2,000 feet, unusually high for a blimp on patrol. It descended back into cloud. At approximately 11:15, L8 reached Ocean Beach. One bather was there, alone on the sand. They watched the blimp approach from offshore, 50 feet above the water, motors silent, gas bag visibly sagging. The blimp touched the beach. The gondola struck the side of an embankment. The starboard engine packed with dirt. The propeller bent. One of the depth charges was knocked loose and separated from the aircraft. And then, lighter, relieved of the weight, L8 rose again. Over the golf course, over the Olympic Club, into the neighborhood south of San Francisco. Golfers stopped. Residents came out of their houses. A 17-year-old named C.E. Taylor raised his binoculars and believed he could still see figures inside the cabin. Ethel Appleton heard the dragline scrape across her roof. She grabbed her 8-year-old daughter and held on. Richard Johnston was polishing his car outside his house. At approximately 11:30, L8 came down on the 400 block of Bellevue Avenue in Daly City. The gondola nosed into a utility pole. The blimp's tail swung into electrical wires and sent sparks to the ground. The envelope sagged down over the street, over Johnston's freshly waxed car. William Morris lived next door. He was a volunteer fireman. He was the first to reach the gondola. He looked inside. Nobody. Three parachutes, all aboard, untouched. One life raft, aboard, untouched. Radio, working. No distress call had been sent after Cody's 7:42 message. The boarding door. Here the record becomes important and complicated. One reconstruction says the door was open, latched forward. Another official summary says one door was locked and the other closed but unlocked. Those are not the same condition. What both sources agree on, a microphone for the hailer was found hanging outside the gondola, dangling in open air over the street. Someone had been using that hailer while positioned at or near the open doorway, talking outward, over the water. On or near the controls, a cap. One source identifies it as Cody's. Behind the pilot's seat, a classified briefcase, still there. 4 to 6 hours of fuel remaining. The engines were mechanically sound. The instruments worked. 2 life jackets were missing from the cabin, consistent with regulations. If you were patrolling over water, you wore your life jacket. Cody and Adams had followed procedure. The Navy's Board of Inquiry convened 2 days later. Commander Francis Cannell presided. 35 witnesses, 7 days of hearings. Their conclusion, in the clinical language of a military investigation: no fire, no submersion, no misconduct, and no missiles struck the L8. And the abandonment, they said, had been involuntary. The men did not choose to leave. The explanation the inquiry leaned toward was mechanical. The safety latch on the door may have failed. One man may have fallen, partially out or fully, while operating the hailer or checking something at the opening. The other man may have gone to the door to help him. And then what? A sudden shift in weight, a current of air, a moment where the choice between the aircraft and the man below becomes no choice at all. That theory fits some of the evidence. The missing life jackets, regulations said, wear them over water. The open door, the hailer microphone outside, the sudden, later climb to 2,000 feet, as if the blimp had shed weight all at once. But the theory has a problem that nobody has answered. The radio worked. It was right there. If one man fell and the other saw it happen, why no call? 30 seconds, 10 seconds, one transmission, man overboard. That call was never made. The witnesses on the Daisy Gray and the Albert Gallatin had seen two men in that cabin, alive, operational, both of them. C.E. Taylor believed he still saw figures in the cabin as the blimp drifted over the golf course, hours later. Nobody knows who to believe. The witnesses conflict. The door records conflict. The fuel records conflict. What does not conflict is this: 2 men departed, 0 men arrived. The Navy officially closed the case as 100% unknown/undetermined. No bodies were recovered. No life jackets were recovered. No confirmed personal effects were found in the ocean. A year after the incident, Cody and Adams were declared legally dead. Helen Adams survived her husband by 2 years. She died in September 1944. Whether she ever knew what happened, whether anyone ever told her anything beyond, "We don't know," the record doesn't say. The gondola of L8 is at the National Naval Aviation Museum in Pensacola, Florida. You can walk up to it today. The same control car that Ernest, Cody, and Charles Adams climbed into at 6 in the morning on August 16th, 1942. The door is right there. The mystery is in a museum case in Florida. The men who flew it are classified, officially, as unknown. Somewhere between the Farallon Islands and the California coast, on a gray August morning in 1942, 2 men disappeared from a sealed aircraft in broad daylight. The door they went through, we still don't know which way it opened.